Did you record everyone?
Okay. And then anybody else? Okay.
Okay, hi everybody. I'll be doing a speech today on El Salvador. Why is there so much poverty and crime in such a beautiful country as El Salvador? My name is Markeisha Samuel, and today I am going to share with you an experience that I had in El Salvador back in August. I will discuss the poverty that caused the sacrifice of food, clothing, education, and necessities, and the crime that still kills many today. Why is El Salvador going through poverty? I took a trip back in August, and when I took a trip, we did a tour around El Salvador. It was beautiful. The scenery was absolutely gorgeous, but as we went further into El Salvador, the living was horrible. They were basically in shacks. Their homes didn't have good roofs on them. They had holes in the roofs. The children were not dressed properly, had holes in their clothes, malnutrition. It was actually a very devastating moment. And once we actually had time to actually stop, we got a chance to speak to some of the kids. We gave them money and listened to them play music. It was a great experience, though. Now, I do understand back in the 1980s that Salvadorian people actually fought in a war, and it ended up killing 70,000 people. Now, El Salvador depends mainly on agriculture. And since it depends on agriculture, it actually provides sugar, cotton, corn, coffee exports, and other commodities to several different countries. And since it does provide those commodities, they're looking to actually build and expand that to provide money for the poverty. Now, with that being said, many of the landless peasants, unable to care for their families, end up migrating because they were not able to provide for their families due to this. A sharp contrast between great wealth and extreme poverty characterizes this society since colonial times. Back in 2006, more than 30% of El Salvadorians lived in poverty. Although public education is free, many parents are unable to afford schools. Like I said, when we visited, kids were basically playing and out and about, and it's in the middle of the school day. Malnutrition is common among children. Rural population rarely has access to sewage systems, and surface water is seriously polluted. We were told to use bottled water and bottled water only. If you need to brush your teeth, rinse your mouth out, use bottled water. And like I told you, the houses look like one-room, earthen floor, thatched roof huts made of adobe and maybe mud and wood. Now, crime has taken over. Basically, to put it short, violence starts with the politicians and trickles its way down, which is really sad. El Salvador ranked the second most murderous nations in the world. So badly that police are talking openly of death squads to eliminate gangs. An investigation and prosecution of the 1981 El Mozote massacre, if I pronounced that right, more than 900 men, women, and children were killed by troops armed and trained by the U.S. Army. High crime will never end. They say if Archbishop Oscar Romero was alive today, he would still tell Vice President Biden, do not give us more of that military aid and training. What Salvadorian people need are schools, hospitals, and medicine. Now, I learned a lot when I went to El Salvador, but just doing the speech alone, having to do my research, I learned so much more of how much it consists of crime and poverty than it's really being put out there. Knowing crime and poverty oriented through politicians and police makes the situation even worse. Without a stable environment, El Salvador will continue to struggle. Thank you.
Oh, you did a great job.